Welcome into a new hour of CBS Sports HQ presented by AMC Plus. Stream the new season of The Walking Dead right now. Chris, I love college football. You love college football. Fans are so dedicated to this Florida-Georgia game. There's RVs already all over town waiting to get into RV City. And this was Monday. The game's not until Saturday.
3:30 Eastern time. It is our SEC game of the week on CBS. Could see all four of these quarterbacks in that game. I did some research, Amanda. Well, our research team did some research. And I saw that research. Last time #1 ranked Georgia played unranked Florida, Georgia won 75-0. That was 1942 when quarterbacks weren't that important. I think they ran it every single play that entire game. We'll see how it unfolds this week, and we'll get you your super preview right now. Joe Musso leading us off.
It's one of the most passionate rivalries in all of college football, and it's going down Saturday afternoon in Jacksonville. The top-ranked Georgia Bulldogs clashing with the Florida Gators. The two schools have gone head-to-head in Jacksonville since 1933, and it's always intense. There was Steve Spurrier and the Heisman curse. Run, Lindsey, run.
45-40, run, Lindsey.
Then Herschel Walker went over the top next year. The Gator stomp. And Urban Meyer getting his revenge the following year, even burning all his timeouts in the final minute. As far as this year goes, the Dogs, led by their ferocious defense, are locked in on trying to win their first national title since 1980. But head coach Kirby Smart knows they can't overlook a talented Florida team.
This game's not about rankings, never been about rankings. It's a rival game. Our kids understand that it's not about records.
As for the Florida Gators, it's been a disappointing year thus far, sitting at 4-3, but they love nothing more than to ruin Georgia's perfect season.
It's the second time we're going to play the #1 team in the same season. That doesn't happen very often. That's why our guys, they'll get juice for this.
It's the Dogs and the Gators in the SEC game of the week. Will Georgia continue to dominate on both sides of the ball, or can Florida pull off the massive upset? We're in for a good one Saturday on CBS.
And Gary Danielson is going to be on the call for this year's matchup, as he is most years for this great Georgia-Florida rivalry. This one's so unique, Gary, because, you know, it's played at a neutral site. It's 50-50 fans, kind of a bowl game setting. How do you describe this rivalry between the Bulldogs and the Gators?
Well, we've got, our conference. These games matter a lot to our fan bases. It's the great passion of the SEC. Everybody knows is unmatched throughout college football. And I guess since I've been in the league in 2006, so this is my, 16th of this, I guess. Yeah, 16th. I guess, because of the excellence of Alabama, LSU, they've kind of captured it since I've been in the league as the #1. But boy, right on its tail, this Florida, Georgia, all but 4 years. I think it's 6-5. All but 4 years, it's either been Georgia or Florida in the SEC championship. And this game meant a lot. Almost every time, the winner of this game determined who was going to play in the SEC championship. And we know that if you get there, you have a chance to get into the playoffs and win the national championship. So great players, great quarterbacks, and as you said, the crowd, the way it's split and how important it is to the fan bases, it's really a joy to do the game.
This season, we had a pretty good idea Florida might take a little bit of a step back. Dan Mullen, though, just 2-6 in his last 8 games against Power 5 opponents. And with Georgia looking like the best team in the country right now, how is Coach Mullen dealing with his first real adversity in his 4th year with the Gators?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know offhand. I know Dan is a survivor. He built the program at Mississippi State to compete. It's tough to, dominate at Mississippi State. And of course, he was part of the program with Urban there at Florida when they kind of controlled this series. Dan is going to, he's always positive. He's always got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, in the press conferences. Actually, both he and Kirby are about the same that way. They like to win the press conferences, and they're both really smart, tough coaches. But, he's up for a challenge. His team has some weaknesses. His quarterback play has not been up to championship level. And lately, the fact that they've been able to be run on, that's a bad sign, especially going into this Georgia game.
More on the matchup and the quarterback situation there at Florida in just a second. On the other side of this coaching matchup, Kirby Smart, who has had one of the top recruiting classes year in and year out there at Georgia, came so close to winning a title a handful of years ago. I would imagine the toughest part of his job this season might be trying to, just stay out of the way at this point, because if they keep doing what they've been doing, they might be able to win the whole thing. So how's he dealing with JT Daniels, who now appears to be healthy enough to return at quarterback?
Chris, I don't know. This is as tough a one. I think, Kirby's had some tough ones. His first season, Jacob Eason, and then he had to decide whether he should play Jake Fromm, and then Jake Fromm and Justin Fields. And now he's got a walk-on who's playing some good football, and a five-star who showed at the end of last year, with his run at the end of last season, what a skilled passer JT is. So it's not an easy decision. And for Georgia fans, and we all know college football fans, as you watch Georgia play, the question is, are they good enough to win that last game with Stetson Bennett? They know they're going to win a lot of games with Stetson, but if they get into that last game and they have the wrong quarterback, and whoever that is, it's as simple as this. Kirby is only going to be right on his quarterback decision if he wins the national championship. Otherwise, he's going to get second guess. It's not fair. We all get it. It's not fair. College football head coaches' jobs, you get paid a lot of money. But in this case, he can be right, but if he loses, it's going to be the wrong decision.
Dan Mullen would love to switch positions with him, though, right now. He has a quarterback carousel as well, if you will. The momentum, though, might be swinging back toward Anthony Richardson. He played well last game compared to Emory Jones, who threw a couple of interceptions in the loss to LSU. Who should we expect to see more of this week, and who do you think gives them a better chance to compete in this game?
Chris, I have trouble trying to put, my expertise ahead of what the coach is saying all the time. When you talk to, Coach Mullen about it, he understands that Anthony Richardson is a supreme talent, and that, he brings something to the game that maybe only 2 or 3 quarterbacks in all of the country can bring with his skill set. But it appears that with Anthony, he's not quite there yet with the whole package of plays. And I think he feels that Emory Jones and Anthony gives him the best way. Listen, I played quarterback. That's not an easy job to play kind of looking over your shoulder. And in the modern world, the social media world, is probably even tougher. But, I take him at his word. He says right now that Emory has a bigger package. And I will say this, it's hard for me to imagine that as good as Anthony Richardson is, and maybe he emerges this week, but if you can't attack Georgia with your entire package, all 53 yards wide, all deep, this Georgia defense will eat you up. You need to be able to do it the way Kyle Trask did it. You have to be able to spread them out, throw the ball, run the ball, do the whole package. And if you're putting a guy in there because he's the future, but he's running with a limited package, I don't see how that's going to work.
And when Florida has had success offensively this season, it's been when they've been able to run the football, had those 245 yards on the ground against Alabama in the near victory there. But what can you expect to do on the ground against a Georgia defense that's given up just 63 yards rushing a game?
Yeah, it's a good question. One interesting point about this game is both quarterbacks, Emory Jones and Stetson Bennett, played their best football when they knew the other guy couldn't play. That game you referenced about Alabama, Emory Jones knew that Anthony Richardson was out. Seemed like he played freer. Stetson Bennett's playing really good football. It's going to be interesting when he knows now that JT is available to come off the bench. So you're right. Most of the running attack comes from the Florida quarterback running the ball, but they need to learn to take care of the football. They've been making too many mistakes, fumbles, interceptions. Florida, if they even come close to having a bad day of self-inflicted wounds, jumping off sides, penalties, fumbles, interceptions, they have no chance. So they have to play a clean game, number one.
It's a daunting task against this Georgia defense. No team has even reached the 14-point mark against them this season. What makes Georgia's defense historically great? Because there's a big difference between a really good defense and a historically great defense, which they are.
Well, they are. They probably have in their front seven, and that means maybe 3 other guys that play. They have probably 10 players they interchange, and I think maybe 8 or 9 of them will play NFL football. And that doesn't mean just make a team. That means play NFL football. So they're disruptive up front. But in my mind, they have not played a team yet that can throw the football. They've not been stretched. They lost 6 defensive backs in the back. They've been able to dominate against teams that are a little bit one-dimensional this year. The season is in front of them. They're going to have a Florida team here. We'll see how good they are, but it's all going to be measured for Georgia in the SEC championship and in the playoffs. I think it's pretty clear that they've got a great chance of making the playoffs, and then we're going to see really how good this defense is when they face those type of quarterbacks that can do both run the game and throw the ball down the field.
Georgia is better this season, no question about that, but this is a rivalry game, and we've seen it every weekend, and sometimes we've even seen unranked teams come up and pick off a top 10, even top 5 teams this season. Is there a blueprint for Florida to be in this game late?
Sure. One thing that Dan Mullen does do, he understands how to attack defenses. He knows his team. He did it last year. Now, I'll admit he had a pretty good package of weapons. But, he's got to keep his team in the football game. I think an important part of this game is Georgia lost Kendall Milton. They now only, they have 2 really veteran running backs. So I look at it to be a game. I think the pride of Florida will come out a bit in this game. I mean, we all know this. You don't have to have me on to tell you that if Georgia's able to run the ball like LSU, they have no chance in this game. So we'll see if that, Florida defense, and it's not just about tactics. It's about, the Florida defense has been being stopped up front, one-on-one. They're losing the battles up front. So they have to stop the run game and go from there. But I've done a lot of these games. There's no sure thing in this sport. And hopefully Saturday we'll have a good game. And, we all know Georgia's the better team, but we'll see what happens.
Gary Danielson going to be on the call Saturday, CBS, 3:30 Eastern Time. Safe travels out there to Jacksonville.
Thanks, Chris.
And not only can you watch that game on CBS, you can stream it live on Paramount+. #1 Georgia against Florida in Jacksonville. Let's bring in SEC savant Barrett, Sallee, and Sports Line's Emory Hunt. We're going to get some picks for this game and break it down from all angles here. Barrett, let's start with how we got here. How did Florida go from thinking this game would decide the SEC East to really being relegated to a mere spoiler at this point in October?
Well, because Dan Mullen's not a quarterback whisperer. I think a lot of folks expected Emory Jones, his hand-picked guy, when he got the Florida job, to come in and be a superstar. And what we found is that maybe Dan Mullen is too stubborn for his own good. Emory Jones, very inconsistent in the passing game, and yet Dan will not include Anthony Richardson into the game plan. So I think that's the genesis of this. And then on top of that, they've been getting burned on 3rd downs with Todd Grantham's defense. He likes to blitz. He blitzed 20 guys if he could. So really the same issue from last year. The defense has gone into this year, and the quarterback has taken a massive step back. And I think when all is said and done, I think the image of Dan Mullen has gone from being a quarterback whisperer to a guy who was successful with Kyle Trask, Dak Prescott, and Tim Tebow. Pretty easy to succeed with those guys taking snaps.
And let's go back to the start of the season. In the SEC, Alabama was the favorite, and then Georgia was right behind them. Florida had top 4 odds to win the conference as well. Georgia was plus 225 at the start of the season. Florida 18-1. Florida's current odds to win the SEC are now astronomical because they've already lost 3 times. Even if they beat Georgia, it's virtually impossible for Florida to win the conference at this point. Georgia would have to lose 3 times, including this week. So, Emory, what do you think about the way things have changed since the start of the season?
Well, I think we learned that Stetson Bennett and Lade McConkey can actually play ball. When we came into the season, it was about JT Daniels, George Pickens, and when we got the news that George Pickens wouldn't be able to play because of the ACL, well, at least JT Daniels is back, and we saw the passing game come to life because that wasn't the case when Stetson Bennett was under center last year. Well, now we see that You don't need JT Daniels. You don't really need George Pickens. You always need George Pickens. But for this argument, you don't really need him because everyone else is stepping up and their offense is still explosive. They're still able to work touchdown and check down the passing game. The run game has been a direct beneficiary of a competent passing game. And Stetson Bennett looks like a bona fide SEC quarterback over what we saw last year. So that has completely changed how we view Georgia, which is why we're looking at Georgia now, not just as an SEC favorite, but a national championship favorite as well.
And looking for payback after Florida won this game handily last season. Players to watch for both of these sides. Barrett, let's start with Georgia.
Well, for Georgia, Emory and I typically go with defensive guys, and it's easy to go with defensive guys for Georgia. But I'm going to go with the offensive guy. I'm going to go with the tight end, the freshman tight end, Brock Bowers. He's their leading receiver, over 400 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, and he's a mismatch. And when you throw him in now with Darnell Washington, then you've got a really dynamic tight end duo up the seam. So for me, you look at what Brock Bowers has done. He's a first-team freshman All-American in the midseason 24/7 Sports Freshman All-American team. He's proving it. You see right here with the ball, he runs like a running back. He's got incredible hands, and he finds a way to get open. So if they can find Brock Bowers consistently in this game, and Stetson Bennett loves him some Brock Bowers, things can get sideways.
Well, Barrett, I'm going to hang out on the defense side of football. Once again, we're talking about Georgia. Lewis Seen, to me, has been impressive. He's someone that I look at in terms of a space eraser. When he's going downhill, he's shrinking space in that regard. When he's closing on a receiver, he's shrinking space as well. And he's also able to dislodge the football from the receiver, separate man from ball. He does that completely every time he hits someone. And he's been highly effective this year, not only in defending the run, but also in his pass coverage. So I think he's probably one of the more improved players defensively for Georgia in terms of his consistency out there on the field.
And Emory, on the Florida side, you're looking at the quarterback position. Which quarterback are you looking for?
Listen, Anthony Richardson, to me, should be out there playing quarterback for the Florida Gators. I know me and Emory share the same first name, spelled the right way, by the way. And also, he's doing a good job in making sure that the game stays an 11-on-11 game. Richardson, to me, is the dynamic threat that they have to get out there on the field. And if we go back to that LSU game, quiet is kept. That intercept he threw to clinch the game for LSU, had he not gotten hit, that was the right read, and it was a great throw. It would have been completed for a touchdown. So I don't understand why the stubbornness is taking place for Dan Mullen. If he just plays the right guy, plays a better player, you can still work Emory Jones in there if you want to, but it's about saving your job. It's about saving the season. It's about saving future recruits, saying like, well, hey, coach doesn't play the guy that's clearly better than the other guy. I may go somewhere else. So they have to play Richardson. If he does, it definitely increases Florida's chances to pull off the upset.
I'm going to cheat a little bit and not pick one person. I'm going to pick 5 people, and that's the Florida offensive line going up against this Georgia front 7. Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle for Georgia, was on local radio here saying that they look at offensive lines as nameless, faceless entities. Well, Florida better introduce themselves to Jordan Davis, and they better introduce themselves in a hurry because they are going to have to keep back one of the top front 7s in all of college football. And look, let's be honest about Florida. They run the football pretty effectively. Dameon Pierce, the quarterbacks, all of them run the ball effectively. That's going to happen. And for that to happen, they have to get great work up front against the best defensive front in college football. So if that offensive line doesn't come together, it's going to get super ugly. And if it does, it'll be the first time all year it's happened against Georgia.
Georgia, number 2 in the nation against the run this season. Just so hard to run that ball against that front line of Georgia. All right, let's tackle the line and the total in this one. Georgia, -14. We've seen some big numbers in the SEC. I thought this one might be a little bit more, but it is a rivalry game. The total is 51. Barrett, you get first crack.
Oh, I'm taking the Bulldogs. I think they'll put it in cruise control by mid-third quarter. I don't think Florida will be able to score. If you have a quarterback issue going into play Georgia, that's a massive, massive issue. So I'll take the Bulldogs. I think Stetson Bennett or JT Daniels, whoever's back there, will be able to work off play action, hit those shots deep. They do that. Both of those guys do that consistently. So if they get into the third quarter and then put it into neutral, that means under. Because I think in this game, it's going to be all about when Kirby Smart wants to take his foot off the gas, and I think that'll be late third quarter. There won't be no issue, no reason to get creative in the offense.
Yeah, I'm laying those points with Georgia. This is about Georgia's defense. And so to me, 14 is not enough because they'll easily steal away 4 or 5 possessions from Florida. They'll turn the ball over at least twice in this game, and they'll give their offense so many chances to put the ball in the paint. So I love the fact that they can not only score, but they can also stop you from scoring. Garbage time points are always in effect when you're talking about Georgia, and a team that is as talented as Florida. We'll see them throw Anthony Richardson in there later in the game when it's decidedly already in Georgia's favor. So we'll have a chance for more garbage points. So I'm taking the over, but I definitely will lay those 14 because the Bulldogs should roll in this ball game.
You guys both agree that Georgia is going to not only win but cover in this game. If indeed they do lose, if Florida is able to pull this upset, do you still have Georgia as your SEC champion and as a playoff participant? Barrett?
Yeah, I have them winning the national championship. I had them before the season, and when we did our mid-season redo predictions, I had them winning the national championship again. They can win the East in this game if they win and Kentucky loses Saturday night. So there's one ticket that could be punched. And I think right now they're the only complete team in college football and really the only elite team in college football as well because everybody sort of has these flaws. So, yeah, I'm riding with the Bulldogs. I hopped on that bandwagon before the season, and I'm driving it at this point.
Definitely following you, Barrett, because this is an easy one for me. Absolutely. They are the best team in college football and in the SEC. If they lose this game, I'll just go into SEC defense mode like, oh, wow. I mean, they played a tough Florida team. I mean, Florida can be tough, man. It's a very tough to beat your rival. Man, forget all that. Georgia is the best team, win or lose. They'll be in the playoffs, and they'll be one of the 2 teams playing for the national title.
It's the SEC Game of the Week, CBS, 3:30 Eastern Time from Jacksonville. Barrett, Sallee, and Emory Hunt here giving us winning picks and breaking down the biggest game from the biggest conference. 3:30 Eastern on CBS. You can also stream it live on Paramount+.